Hello, everyone, and welcome to the last episode of the Craft Conversation Winter Series. Today, we're going to be talking about rug hooking in Newfoundland and how that came from a tradition. And today, most craftspeople that create rug hook pieces, they're giving their own flair of contemporary designs and also experimenting not only with materials, but with the shapes and the sizes of their rugs. Before we start, I would like to do our acknowledgement for the province. We respectfully acknowledge the territory in which the Craft Council Gallery is located as the ancestral homelands of the Beothuk and the island of Newfoundland as the ancestral homelands of the Mi'kmaq and Beothuk. We would also like to recognize the Inuit of Nunatsiavut and Nunatukavut and the Innu of Nitsinan and their ancestors as the original people of Labrador. We strive for respectful relationships with all the peoples of this province as we search for collective healing and true reconciliation and honor this beautiful land together. So, as I said, we are here with the Rug Hooking Guild of Newfoundland and Labrador. And I'm going to pass the word to Kelly Fewer, who is going to introduce all the presenters for this evening. And I hope you enjoy. Kelly?
Thank you very much. And thank you for the opportunity to speak about this craft and art form that we all so love. My name is Kelly Fewer, and I am currently serving as the president of the Rug Hooking Guild of Newfoundland and Labrador. This is my second term. I interrupted my term several years ago when I ran away to China to teach for a couple of years, and then they made me take it back up again when I came back. So I'm delighted to be representing the Guild this evening. We have several of our former presidents and serving in roles of past presidents with us this evening. And perhaps I'll ask each of you to just say hello and introduce yourselves. Teresa, would you like to start, please?
Okay, I lost my button just for a second. I'm Teresa Green. I live in Glovertown in Newfoundland, and I was past president of the Rug Hooking Guild of Newfoundland and Labrador.
Joan?
Hi, I'm Joan Foster. I live in Springdale, Newfoundland, and I'm also a past president of the Guild.
And that's you, Roy, your left.
Good evening. My name is Roy Evans. I live in Lark Harbour, Newfoundland, and I have a business in York Harbour, and I am the most recent past president of the Rug Hooking Guild of Newfoundland and Labrador.
So I asked these individuals to join me this evening because they're all very knowledgeable about the history of the Guild, having been involved with the Guild for a long time, and also very knowledgeable about rug hooking matters as they stand in the province. I'm just going to share my screen for a moment, and I prepared a little presentation that's going to help guide us as we have our discussion. All right, can you see my opening screen? All right. So, rug hooking in Newfoundland, it's commonly agreed that the earliest appearances came in the provinces along the northeastern coast and into Quebec, the Atlantic provinces, and in the New England states. We're just going to chat a little bit about the history of it here in Newfoundland. In Newfoundland specifically, although they came from a common tradition, we see the evolution of two distinct styles. The traditional style that came from its roots in England and Scotland, and then the development of the Grenfell mat. In Newfoundland, we typically have two techniques of rug hooking. One was the hooked loop, where loops were pulled up from the back of the mat. And there's an example here on the screen of a very popular hit and miss mat that was used to use up any scraps that were lying around in the mat maker's basket. And then the ragged jack, which was of English origin, is a prodded mat. And in that case, the strips of fabric are pushed down from the top of the mat and then flipped over when the mat is taken and placed on the floor. The mats themselves, historically, the mats were very simple, and they used a lot of simple design elements, large scrolls and floral patterns, primitive animals. They often reflected the mat maker's current situation, where they were situated geographically in the community. They would have featured perhaps churches in the community or landmarks that were popular. Some of them also took their designs from popular quilting patterns at the time. And as I said, they were of a primitive style. And because they were using a lot of old worn clothing, most of the mats that you see had a sort of narrow color palette. Sometimes mat makers were lucky enough to find a piece of vibrant material, but they would have kept that for special kinds of rugs. In the early years in Newfoundland in the 20th century, we have the evolution of our Grenfell mat. So we had a British missionary, Sir Wilfrid Grenfell, who came to Newfoundland, and he was operating mostly along the northern peninsula and into the coast of Labrador. And in his work as the missionary in providing healthcare services to the area, he fostered the development of a cottage industry whereby he taught women how to hook, and they provided patterns for the women to hook, and then those mats were then sold. So we had a whole, pardon me, a whole generation of women then who were able to get income from selling their mats in various parts of the country and into the United States. He was very concerned about recruiting materials from the States, and he had an ad put in a local paper down there at one point which read, "When your stockings run, let them run to Labrador." And he was encouraging all the society women at the time to send up their silk stockings because they were readily available, and of course they were easy to dye. So it was materials that were available to them. On the left side of the screen there, you'll see one of perhaps the most well-known Grenfell patterns, which was the map of Newfoundland. According to our rug registries, this one's dated around 1938. And then Joan Foster, who is appearing here as one of our panelists, this is Joan's version done in pantyhose on the right side of the screen. Joan is our resident Grenfell expert. He's very knowledgeable in all matters Grenfell. So the women of Newfoundland and Labrador would have been the traditional mat makers in the rural communities. This is a photo of Louise Belbin. She was a very well-known figure in mat making in Newfoundland and Labrador, and many of her mats still survive. She's representative really of the woman who would have been engaged in this activity. Most of the time, mat making was limited to the winter months because, of course, the winters here in Newfoundland can be quite harsh, and you were spending a lot of time indoors. So the men would have constructed frames and made hooks for their women. And then the women would have set up those frames in the kitchen, perhaps, where usually was the warmest part of the house. The children would have been enlisted to cut up all the strips from the old clothing and everything that was worn, but still serviceable and not ready to go into the bin. And then they would have spent their winters hooking new mats for their home. They would have had mats that were assigned different places in the home. So fancier mats would have been in the front parlor where guests would have gathered. And then more serviceable ones would have been in the kitchen and in the back porch. So like many traditional handcrafts, when we joined Confederation in 1949 and more commercial products became available to us, mat making started to lose its appeal then. That the whole handmade notion was moving away from anything handmade, anything that reminded people of the past and the work that had to be done to produce goods. And commercial goods were really what people were wanting to purchase to put into their homes. So unfortunately, there was a period where there was not a lot of mat making happening in the province. But enter a group of women in 1995 who decided that they wanted to revive the practice of mat making in the province. So I'm going to turn the presentation over now, Joan, to you.
Thank you, Kelly. Well, in 1995, there was a lady who lived on Change Islands. Her name was Linda Peckford, and she had learned to hook from her grandmother when she was a small child. But she realized, as Kelly said, that mat making was becoming a lost art, and she decided she was going to do something about it. So she put an ad in local newspapers asking for anyone who was interested in mat hooking to contact her. And she got enough response that she was able to organize a workshop. She convinced the lady from Nova Scotia, Edie Cole, who's a rug hooking Guild of Nova Scotia certified teacher, to come over. And we all met on Change Islands in August of 1995 for a weekend. And we had a wonderful workshop. And on Saturday night, we gathered in the dining room of the Seven Oaks Inn, and we decided that if Nova Scotia could have a guild, why can't we have our own guild? So we did our election of officers and set up a committee to do a constitution, and that was the beginning of the Rug Hooking Guild of Newfoundland Labrador. And here we are 26 years later, still waiting to celebrate our 25th anniversary. After COVID, we're going to have quite a party. I can tell you that. So anyway, we've come a long way in our 26 years. We started the Heritage Rug Registry. Kelly, do you want to flip to the next one? Yeah, we started in we started registering mats that were at least 25 years old, and we called it our Heritage Rug Registry. We would photograph the rugs and fill a questionnaire, take information on who had hooked them, when it was known, and do a condition report and so on. And after a couple of years, we had enough that we decided it's time for us to do a book now. So by 2006, we were able to publish our book, Hook Mats of Newfoundland and Labrador, Beauty Born of Necessity. And that featured about 150 or so of the rugs with stories and so on, and information on mat hooking. And that registry is continuing on today. We have over 1,200 mats registered now, and the information is all at the rooms where people can go in and do research on it and so on if they're interested. Some other things we've accomplished: we have a quarterly newsletter, which is accessible online, or you can get a hard copy. We've run an annual rug school almost every year. Last year was a little different. We have a teachers group and a teacher certification program. We actually right now have 17 certified teachers in the province with another 3 associates. We have several branches around the province where some people meet weekly, others bi-weekly. And lately, a lot of us have been meeting via Zoom. So you can't put us down. We're still going to meet one way or another. We hold hook-ins, and we're also involved in a lot of community projects and displays and so on. So I'll turn it over to Teresa now to tell you about some of that.
You're looking for me now?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm doing the community connections. So hook-ins in the branches are a time when we get together and hook together and share our friendship. And it's a lovely, it's regular hook-ins. But then sometimes we have regional hook-ins, in which time we invite the public to come in and visit us and see what we're up to. And they really enjoy that. So there was a donation of supplies made to the school in Bay Despair. And members of the guild in that area set up a great program for the children. As you can see, they did fantastic work. And they learned the art of rug hooking and produced these beautiful pieces. Art Smart program is, I should read off my paper because I go off subject. A number of members have been a part of this educational program. Teaching children to hook often brings conversations into the families and to the community. And the history of the craft in that community comes out. And people start looking in their sheds and then bringing out old frames and hooks and all these memories come bubbling up. And so that's my favorite part of doing things with children in the school. Then we had a fundraiser for the Ronald McDonald House. Perfect, Kelly, thank you. Drawings done by children who spent time in the Janeway were transferred to Burlap and hooked by Guild members, then in turn encourage members of the community to hook a loop or two. These artworks were then auctioned off and the funds raised were donated to the Janeway. So, to Ronald McDonald House, sorry. And as the display is in Ronald McDonald House, and it's really a beautiful display, as you can see. It was a great project. We had traveling exhibits. So some dedicated members of our guild set up exhibits to go across the province, and sometimes even got as far as Labrador when it was possible. And they would decide on a theme, and they would ask us to register and say, well, we're going to put a piece in for the exhibit. So last year for our anniversary, we joined with the rooms to put a display together. So this display was set up with 40% of the rooms rugs from their collection, and the other 60% were pieces from our members. And it's really a beautiful display, and it's really worth a visit. So anyway, it opened last year, but because of COVID, it was delayed in opening. So therefore, they have kept it in the Mary March Provincial Museum for another year. So the interactive things like looking into the rug registry or trying a bit of hooking yourselves and all those kind of things, so far they haven't been able to do because of the health issues. But they are hoping that maybe things will get lifted enough this year that we'll be able to bring a bit of that back. But we did have a class there. Joan had a class, I believe, and that was okay because they were all spaced out perfectly and everything like that. So we managed to get that off. The Mary March Provincial Museum this year now will open at the beginning of May, the first week in May, as it stands now, as long as there's no more COVID cases pop up. And then they are open then for the season until the second week in September. And so I really think if you're going to have a staycation here in Newfoundland, you should make an effort to go and see it. But then next year, the display is going to move on down to Grand Bank, to the Provincial Seamen's Museum, and they will have it for next year, for 2022. So I think that will allow that people down in that area will be able to see it. So that's it for me.
All right. And if COVID delays it any further, we're going to end up having to have a 30th anniversary display.
I don't know if the rooms would go for that.
All right, Mr. Roy. No, you're muted, Roy.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Hey, would you go back to the previous slide, please, Kelly?
Certainly, yeah.
Well, while you're reading this important quote, I would like to say that I propose to address the issues of the evolution of craft into an art form and its economic implications for the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. The next slide has two images that are taken from two separate presentations about the impact of the past on present practice and cultural development. I highly recommend that you look them. That's not the right slide, Shelley.
Oh, sorry. This one?
I highly recommend that you look these two articles up. Use Jason Ross Sellers as a cue there, and Clifford's Education Fund would get you to Janice David's work, and you can see, read what they have to say. But generally, in each of them, the impact of the love of grandparents for their craft and their families and future generations is far-reaching and transformative. My own great-grandmother had a very important part in my life, and she had a hand in raising me. And I spent many hours in her attic with her poking rugs. Today, those rugs are called Regajack or Proddy. But those are wonderful memories for me, not only of my grandmother, but of the fiber arts, introduction to fiber arts that have continued through my life. I became a weaver, a spinner, a rug hooker, a needlepoint worker, and my great-grandmother had a great influence on that. In the next slide, we have a rug that was inspired by a story told by Mark Critch, a very well-known Newfoundland storyteller. And it was hooked by Maureen Ashfield, one of our guild members from Robert's Arm. This illustrates how today's inspiration often comes from many different sources. The art community as a whole shares and stimulates and inspires each other. And so artists and artisans from other media borrow from their colleagues in the various areas of the entertainment industry and the art world. The generosity of spirit and sharing is illustrated by this particular exchange. Another issue arises from this as well, that of copyright and the negative economic impact that the consequences of using another artist's work without permission can have. This is an ongoing discussion in many areas of the art world and in many different levels of the art world, ranging from movies and Hollywood right down to local artists that make patterns and then other people use them to create materials. In the next slide, we showcase the work of two of the province's talented artisans. Oh, that's a different slide too.
I apologize. This is the one you're looking for.
Yes. The slide showcases the work of two of the province's talented artisans. Diane Warren's work has been showcased in many areas, including this one of the magazine Rug Hooking. And Jackie Alcock's illustrated eclectic style is appreciated by a growing audience. And this year, her work is featured in the Rug Hooking Museum of North America in Nova Scotia. We have evolved from floor mats and mug mats to high art featured in publications, galleries, and museums. I'm aware of rug hookers who have created pieces that are proudly displayed as records of historical events in public places across this province. The next one, called Sleepy Cove, brings us back to the theme of maternal influences on future generations, but also look at the artistic evolution in the use of color, style, design, and imagery in the creation of high art. And we see the blending of media to create a valuable dynamic piece. This piece not only has rug hooking, but it also has oil painting incorporated into the creation of the piece of work. Next slide, Kelly, please. No.
I've got you all fooled up.
Yes, this one. Teresa's Mamatique, birch bark Mamatique, illustrates the influence of her interest in Aboriginal history as well as rug hooking. And the next one, Winnie Glavine.
That one, yeah.
Winnie Glavine's work and Maria Estrela's work illustrate the use of recycled materials and using them to create something that is functional, but also highly artistic. There are also examples of a family value of recycling. We talked about the recycling of silk stockings a little earlier in the history, and people like Winnie and Maria continue this this tradition of recycling obtained from their grandmothers and their mothers. And so these are examples of the many ways that the use of more traditional materials and innovative, creative ideas are causing the art form to evolve. Artistic and utilitarian projects are being completed every day in Newfoundland and Labrador. Next slide, Kelly, please. Where will we be going from here? Well, there are a number of, only the future knows, but it is clear that this art form has become an important part of the fabric of the culture and heritage of the province. It has become an economic driver in the financial life of our province. Tourists come seeking to buy or commission mats, and Molly White's Molly Made Fiber Art Studio is one example of the production of patterns, frames, hooks. They produce everything in their shop and they sell it across the world, actually. Tourists come to Newfoundland and Labrador seeking to buy or commission mats. Jobs are created through craft sales, pattern development and sales. Store clerks are hired to sell foundation materials, equipment, and supplies. Teachers offer courses for a fee and increase interest in sales in the artwork. Annual rug schools create courses, and scores of people travel seeking accommodation, supplies, and instruction. And some travelers are interprovincial, others are international as well as local. Craft shops, museums, and galleries across the province and in other areas of Canada present and sell the work of these wonderful, wonderful artisans. The future is bright and exciting.
It is indeed bright and exciting. And where do we go from here? We don't know. The artists that are currently working today, they're operating out of a desire to honor the past, but as well make their mark on the present. And then what the future will bring will be dependent on some of these lovely individuals that you see before you. As the Guild, we're always cognizant of wanting to ensure that this craft and this art form continues through education and promotion. So we'd encourage anybody to get involved and join us. Thank you, Bruno.
Thank you so much, Kelly. This was like a wonderful presentation, and I'm sure it's just a glimpse of what the rug hooking is in the province and how incredible it is. Actually, one of my first shows in the Craft Council Gallery when I started was setting up a show from the Guild, and that was in 2017, I believe. And I remember falling in love with it. Rug hooking is something that I only learned when I moved to Newfoundland. I had no idea. Like, I knew about the rugs, but I didn't know how in depth it was until I moved here and start my life in textiles. I'm an embroiderer, by the way. That's so I would like to open the floor now for questions. I do have one question here that came through the chat. And the question is, how many of the members and branches are in Labrador?
Oh, sorry, in Labrador?
Yeah.
Yeah, Labrador has proved to be a little challenging for us because of the distance and the geographical divide that separates us, that Strait of Labrador. And so we've had several times, and Joan can speak to this because she's been there to represent the Guild and to do work and offer workshops up there. So Joan, would you like to address that?
Yes, I've been up there several times and taught workshops in Labrador City, Churchill Falls, Happy Valley Goose Bay, down on the coast, and we've encouraged people. We've even offered a scholarship, a travel bursary, and so on to get them to come out to rug school. But we've picked up a few members, but not there's been no branch set up as such. I know there are a few continuing to hook in Goose Bay, but other than that, I'm not aware of too many others that are continuing with it.
That's a call out for Labrador rug hookers. Contact the guild. Do I have any questions on the floor?
Kelly, this is Pat talking.
Yes, ma'am.
You and Joan and the other members, Teresa and Roy, might also be aware of this past year, the challenge of our hookers to get materials in lockdown situations. And here in Gander in particular, we saw the resignation or retirement rather of one of our matriarchs. Alice Kelly stepped down from rug hooking after 25 years of being involved. You know, she was our go-to person for backing and hooks and everything. So a lot of people, I took over from Alice. I'm like the new Alice, as I said, but we haven't been able to do much because we haven't been able to get together physically. And usually, Bruno, when we have our annual rug camp and also our central regional hookings, you know, have all the pop-up shops from the suppliers like Roy and Joan and many others that sell various materials. So it was a real challenge, and I found myself being inundated with questions even as recently as 2 days ago. You know, where can I get burlap? Where can I get rug warp and stuff like that? So, and we had a beginner's workshop here in December, which was great. We had 10 young people with brown hair, as I call them. We had young people hooking, which was excellent. But, you know, they too were on a mad tear for kits and whatever. So I did my best, but I'm wondering, is there some way that we can have a resource list available so that we don't have to order burlap from Nova Scotia or Ontario, you know, for our hookers, because we do want to support our local. So I don't know if you've got some suggestion. I don't know if the Craft Council itself could help facilitate some, you know, making resources available like that. So we have one list where we could go to even on our Facebook or our website and say, well, I can order a hook here or a kit here, because you see little bits of it in various craft shops around the island, right?
Yeah.
But backing seems to be the most challenging resource to obtain.
We have may I jump in?
Yes, absolutely.
We have a large supply at the Roost of primitive linen, traditional linen, and Ulster linen. We also have hooks, and we have a huge supply of yarn. I have a new supply coming in next week. And if you look at our Facebook page or our website, you can order those things there.
Okay, great. I'm going to pass that along to in particular, the 10 new ladies that joined our area. Roy, thanks for that. I knew you had some supplies because I've been in your shop and loved it, but you know, I don't recall every bit of backing that I see anywhere. I see a lot of wool and buy a lot of wool myself, right?
Just done that. We are also selling Jones patterns, and we're selling Molly's store. Okay, so we're selling other people across the island as well.
Yeah, that's good to know for sure.
Thank you, Patricia.
Yeah.
Could you repeat the name of your store, please?
Called The Roost at York Harbor, and if you Google it, you'll find you can find it on Facebook and you can find it on the web.
The Roost at York Harbor. Thank you.
Laura, you had a question?
I do. I actually am the guild president down here in Albuquerque in New Mexico. We only have one guild down here. But one thing we have is, like you said, brown haired, you had 10 brown haired people in how? We do a lot of outreach in that. We go to our botanic garden here in town twice a month in non-COVID years. And we see a lot of kids that way who are coming through with school vacations, and they're really interested in it.
Yeah.
How do you maintain interest? Is it just because it's within your history and your culture more than it is down here, maybe? Down here, it's all about weaving, and I'm not from here originally. I'm actually from Massachusetts. Do you have any tips to get younger people? We need younger people down here.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure, I'll just say, I know several of the ladies that joined in December, at least 6 of the 10, they, related to myself and the teacher. I was there as a facilitator. Just the fact that they watched their grandmothers do it as a child and helped out. And now they're married in their 20s, settling down with a child or two, and discover that they have an artistic inclination and wanted to, I know when I took up rug hooking, I still had brown hair, but I might have had some help there. But, my mom and my aunts were absolutely mortified when I told them I was taking up rug hooking. They couldn't believe it. They blanched because they had these awful memories of every Saturday night being forced to sit around and cut up strips of stuff. And they were like, well, you can go to Walmart and buy those things. Why would you want to hook a rug when you can go over town and get one? But, I saw the beauty in it, of course, and, stuck with it. And I hooked both of them a tea cozy, which they absolutely loved. So I brought them around a little bit. But, you could tell that, as I said in the presentation, once we joined Confederation and new products became available, we got rid of everything and just went for whatever we could buy at Kmart or Wilco. And that's the unfortunate part of a lot of our antique history. Antique buyers came in from all over the States and bought up everything that people were throwing away because they wanted new chrome stuff. Yeah.
You also need a hook for younger people to get them in, and I think that one of the ways of getting them interested is to show them that they can create mats from their own artwork. Drawing or something that they've done, and have them create a pattern from that, and then hook it. You'd have a good chance of having them continue to try and create their own work.
Right. Yeah, I that's what I do. I don't buy patterns. I use my own, because I had an aunt who was an artist who yelled at us when we were kids. Why are you using a coloring book? Draw your own.
Draw your own, yeah. I think we also have an advantage because we have one of our instructors, or one of our registered teachers is teaching punch hooking here in the province now. And that's recruiting a few of the brown-haired ladies, as Pat says, but because those textiles now are very hip, they're all over
Instagram.
Right?
Yeah,
exactly.
I know. I teach punch too. So
yeah. So that, for some of them, that's the entry, right? They come in for the punch, and then they see the other kinds of things that are happening. So yeah.
Go ahead. Just say, when I was doing an Art Smart program down on the south coast of Newfoundland, at the end of the program, we were supposed to have an exhibit at the time of the concert, the school concert, but weather got in the way, so we couldn't do it. And so they said, well, what are we going to do? So I said, well, I'll put all your pieces up on my Facebook page, which is a rug hooking Facebook page, and I'll share it with the school. Well, they got so many likes and hearts and all that stuff, but they were delighted, and so it kind of reached them without really intending. I mean, it just happened because it had to, because we had no other way to get them out there. But it turned out that it was a very effective thing to do.
Yeah. And we have a program sponsored through the Department of Education here, where schools can apply to have working artists come in and work in the schools to help develop the curriculum through an artistic lens. And so we've had a lot of rug hookers going into various schools and connecting with kids and families that way.
That's been a problem here. We've had some homeschoolers who have come into us in the Botanic Garden, but the schools have proven to be a tough nut.
Yeah, one of the things that it really facilitates, apart from the history of the province, like the rug hooking is so intrinsic to the history of the province, a lot of the galleries and museums here, they show rug hooking, textile arts a lot.
Right.
Just this morning, for example, we had a teacher that came to see Anastasia Chiller's shows that is in the Grenfell Council Gallery, which is solely based on rug hooking, because she teaches textiles in the classes. So there's a lot of support and that goes into what Roy was saying, that craft was born out of necessity, and it blurred the line of fine art, and we are still blurring that line by making those textiles pieces and ceramics and all the metals go into gallery spaces. So that creates a visibility that is pretty big. I would advise, as a tip, look up the Art Smart program on ArtsNL website. They usually help a lot, and maybe that's something that you can bring into your guild, which is connecting with schools to teach art. Is that crafts, textiles, ceramics, or fine art? It is a very well thought out program that might help you a lot.
Oh, look it. Thanks.
There any other questions on Christina?
I've got a question. So, associated with some of the galleries and communities here in Ontario, there is like the Burlington Rug Hookers Guild through the art gallery there, and there's, I think, several others. But I was so looking forward to the I think it was last year or maybe this year, where it was the get together in Newfoundland for the International Rug Hookers Guild, and what I was super excited about that. I've seen the school rug hooking school. I had conflict with my schedule, but I'm wondering, as someone who's living in exile and won't be getting back for another 10 years, unfortunately, but I still want to remain connected. Is there a way, other than the guild membership, are there sort of satellite branches that that have popped up, or has that even been considered? Just curious.
Do you mean satellite branches of the International Guild?
No, just even of the Newfoundland Guild, where there's
Yeah.
some of us who are living away, but
Yeah.
maybe able to connect, and when we are able to meet in person, to maybe do some hook-ins that way. Just curious.
Last night, we actually met through Zoom, members of our Rug Hooking Guild, and we had a lady from Minnesota and another lady from Ontario join us, so you can certainly get in on that.
Okay, perfect.
Right,
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know of any like alumni groups or anything like
Yeah.
that are operating outside of the province, though. Not that I'm aware of. There may be, but
yeah,
so something we'll have to investigate. We'll put a call out and see if we can
Leslie
find.
has a
I
question.
just want to add to that. So we are not affiliated with you, other than I know a few of the names. I've connected with a few of you and delighted to, and had hoped to be at Tigger as well. But I just want to say I'm with the Ottawa Old Forge in Ottawa, Ontario, and we kind of are in the Ottawa Valley and into Western Quebec. And all to say, I was amazed when I joined about 5 years ago, because we have about 105 or 6 members, and probably, I'm not sure, I'm looking at Jane, but I'm thinking maybe we have 50% from both Maritimes, but also Newfoundland and Labrador, to the point that I thought, wow, it's like anybody who's kind of moved from the East Coast has now kind of evolved. If they're in part of our area, it's been wonderful, because we really do get quite an influence, I would say, a very positive influence too, by the way, from some of the Newfoundlanders, and yeah, delighted with that. So just wanted to mention that. So Christina, it's not quite the same, but at least, Christina, if you're in the Ottawa area when we start meeting again, you'll see on our website when we meet, and you're more than welcome. And it might feel a little bit like you're kind of connecting with a few. Yeah.
You might get a flavor of home. Yeah.
There you go. I'm actually in the Toronto area, but I'm still looking around, and have been, because of COVID, been able to go to some virtual hook-ins. So that's been amazing. I've just enjoyed that.
If I don't see any more questions coming up. Nope. So I would like to thank everyone that came here tonight from all over the place. I'm really thrilled that our last session have so many people from outside the province. I would like to thank Kelly and the Guild so much for taking these invitation and coming in and talking a little bit. I think we just glanced over the history of rug hooking and the history of the Guild. There is much more into that. Right now, we do have a show in the gallery. If you guys want to check out, is a rug hooking show. You can check out online. We have a 3G tour that is happening, so you can navigate throughout the whole exhibition. But from the bottom of my heart, thanks everyone. Thank you so much, the Guild. The Craft Council will be celebrating its 50th year next year, so I'll be in touch with the Guild for sure, because I'm gonna need a lot of information from you folks. Frances that is joining here today, she does amazing three-dimensional rug hooking, and she's gonna have a piece with other 12 people that is creating this piece for a show later in the fall this year. So keep checking the website for the gallery, keep checking the events that are happening. Next week on April 7th, we're gonna have Anastasia Chiller, that is a recent rug hooker, talking about her process of creation. Is also a free event, so feel free to check it out, feel free to register. And thanks again. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much for keeping the traditions alive.
Thank you, Bruno, very
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah.
Happy Easter,
Thank
everyone.
you, everyone. It's great. Thank
It's
you.
great to see you all.
Great. Thank you.
Hook
Thank
on,
you.
hook on, hook on.
Bye.
Hook fast.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.